Anyway, we just got back from seeing Tintin for the second time. Call this a for a given value of instant movie review.
So this is a combination of 3 different Tintin stories. The Case of the Golden Crab, The Secret of the Unicorn, and Red Rackham's Treasure. Though, really the first one was used to a very moderate degree.
The first one really, in the stories, introduced Haddock. You actually see a lot of the characters from it because Haddock's crew play a major role in this movie. But the entire plot line, the opium smuggling and all of that, not really there. You'll see a few allusions to it here and there, though. But I have to start this off by saying that overall, this was a great movie.
I had a lot of fun watching this. It was very reminiscent of the adventure movies. And since this is Spielberg, it felt kind of like watching an Indiana Jones movie without the, swinging the ropes Tarzan-ish approach.
So, no, I would say that this might not have been, I'm not the most experienced with Tintin, so this might not have been the most true to Tintin in the direct story-wise, but what it did capture, in my opinion, was a lot of the flavor of Tintin, that real sense of adventure, the real sense of who the characters were. Haddock came off as being a bit different, but there are 2 reasons for that. We'll get to that in a bit. But overall, great fun movie.
What do you say?
Yeah, there was a lot of fun to be had there, especially for people who might not be familiar with the Tintin franchise or have only seen a little bit of it. As a whole, I found it to be a very good introduction. I have seen some Tintin before, but it was a very good introduction for a person who hasn't seen a lot. I actually had never seen Haddock, or I hadn't watched anything about Red Rackham before. And I know that the story is slightly altered for the movie format and Steven Spielberg's tastes. But as a whole, I found the introduction to be very good. I knew exactly what I was getting out of each of the characters. So for people who aren't as versed in the Tintin universe, it's still a very good movie.
What I liked about this is, you had, in years past, we've moved to some animated movies being done motion capture-wise. I really enjoy the Tintin universe, and I like the fact that we kept the more animated approach to the characters, like sort of cartoonish appeal in Erge's style. So you didn't lose the fact, that Tintin did look like Tintin. Haddock certainly was Haddock without losing sort of the right feel they were going for with the animation, and not coming off as too alien-looking as you got in movies, say, like the Polar Bear Express.
Actually, when you get down to it, the character that looks the least like they do in the original series is Tintin, because Tintin's features are actually very, very simple. And so the actual detail upwork they do to make him the focus of the movie actually takes him a little bit further from the character. When you go and look at like the side characters, like Sakharin or the first mate, you look at them; they are the people.
Flat face nose,
yeah,
and
it's perfect. That was very well done.
We did change the emphasis on some of the characters, and change some of the backstory. As Snake Eye said, that's sort of a movie format thing. It helped bridge the 3 stories.
It's funny because they actually worked in an appearance by the opera singer, who I don't believe makes an appearance in any of the 3 stories.
Nope.
And yet they took out Professor Calculus, who actually was in the final of the 3 stories. But
what?
What are you, taking the goat?
Taking the goat? Actually, one of the fun things was the score.
Well, whoever the composer was.
Oh no, it's John Williams.
Oh, it is John Williams.
That's the reason.
Well, that makes it even better. So I think John Williams was having a lot of fun when he wrote the score for this, because I swear when they were heading into Morocco, it sounded like Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Dum, 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 dum.
And even better, when they were heading into one of their chase scenes, right before it started, the Death Star trench run started up. And I was...
You worry about the guns, I'll worry about the tower.
Which is particularly funny because they then blew up the little tower thing.
With the gun, no.
Yeah, with the gun.
I was
It's
looking
like,
for Gold Leader, so I mean...
But,
they came from behind!
yes.
So, it's very John Williams.
It was stated, and you'll hear us say this again at another point, it was stated by Ergay before he died in the 80s that only Spielberg could do a Tintin movie, and I'm not disappointed by this at all.
No, you actually had some of the most... you had the work of some real giants going into this one. You had Steven Spielberg, and there was another big name that was going in the production side of things.
Oh, wait. The guy who did Lord of the Rings, Peter
Jackson.
Peter
Steven Spielberg and Peter Jackson. Huge names. John Williams on the score. Huge name.
Steve Moffat on the writing.
If you haven't heard of him, you should look him up because huge name. He's not as big as the others, but he's the up-and-comer, and it's a big deal. And it really does show, both in the script work and in the entire filmography of the movie. It's just great.
Well, the filmography itself is something that I was very surprised by. To give an example of what I felt to be pretty revolutionary, I'd almost say. Tintin walks into a dark room with a flashlight, and as he walks in with the flashlight, you see the little flecks of dust in the air going up and moving up like you would see them in a dark room. And the attention to detail there. And then when you look at the pieces of glass throughout the movie, and there's specific important cases that certain ships are stored in, the level of distortion on the glass was something that just...
Yeah. The distortion, reflection,
at every moment possible, they really wanted to take you into this idea that you were not in an animated thing, you were in a world. That this was real, even where it wasn't.
Where the only thing that about the world that was cartoonish were the characters themselves.
Yeah, I would say they used the medium to full effect.
They managed to maintain a sense of realism, along with a sense of the fantastical and the silliness, and you didn't feel like any part detracted from any of the others. So when it was silly, you didn't feel like, oh my god, I'm watching like a really stupid kids movie.
It gets very cartoony at moments. But at the same time, there's this level of realness at other areas that is just perfect. And then, at points, it takes it off into the completely surreal. One of my favorite uses of the medium is the scene transitions are astounding. Everything from the semi-subtle, like the focusing in on the reflection on a blade to take you into the next scene, to the absolutely surreal, where you see the characters, in a boat, and you in the middle of the ocean, and you pan out, and you realize the boat is in a puddle on a sidewalk, and someone steps on it. I mean, it's just this very flow of consciousness to a not flow of consciousness story.
What I loved is that scene specifically. You had the main story, okay, but one of the things that was reminiscent of Tintin is you had the main story, and you had these little side stories that were included within that actually mattered, and they didn't get rid of those. And they really could have. I mean, say, it's about a 2-hour movie, and it doesn't feel like it. But for time, sometimes they drop things like that, and the fact that they didn't, I think, was actually fairly important, and I like the fact that they kept it.
Yeah, hell, even the characters that are less than side story,
were maintained.
Yeah. So when you have the pickpocket run off and he collides with someone to explain how he doesn't just run away, it's not just some random passerby that we forget about. Exactly. I mean, they're not on for longer than a minute or two, but there's this entire little scene going on with them until the camera finally moves away to show that other things are going on.
I think that is really one of the aspects of the movie that really catches me, because it's not just a scene where the pickpocket runs away and you see some of the silly. That was a slightly silly, slightly off camera shot, but you even have things, attention in detail. Where if there's a water shortage, you know, you can completely miss that in one scene in the movie. The first time around, I didn't notice what was going on there, but the second time around, you notice there's a water shortage, and you can start making inferences about what's going on in this little city, which I think it's the city that's controlled by.
Was it a caliphate?
I don't believe it was a caliphate. I think it was just one of those
sultan.
Sultanate.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a sultanate.
Oh.
And so you start to figure out that he's the one hoarding up the water, and people are, you know, starting to get low on water. And then later, when they blow up the dam, and you see all the flooding happening, and you see people's reactions to that, it's just, there's an entire story being told that they don't have to bludgeon down your head, that you can just, you start to take in, so you take in new things each time you watch the movie.
Yeah, which is great. Which actually is a question I meant to actually ask you, Albie. In the story that city came from, was there a water shortage? Was that a part of the deal?
In that specific city, it's not so much that there was a water shortage. The Sultan was corrupt. In the story, he was in on the drug trade that the Karabujan was involved in. But the water shortage is not something I specifically remember. The idea of this very opulent estate that he lived on while the rest lived in squalor. The rest did live in squalor, but he was not living on some sort of opulent Garden of Eden sort of place.
Which means, once again, Ergay was right. Steven Spielberg was the right person to bring this alive.
He gave you a story within a story, so, you know, it was rich with substance. I would certainly recommend.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
flat out. And given the amount of money that this thing's pulling in worldwide, we're going to get our next two movies. And I highly recommend you, if you've seen Tintin, you should go and watch this, because it really does capture the essence. If you haven't, this is a pretty good way to get yourself started.
There's some fun stuff for those of you who know a little bit about Tintin in here. You know, in the beginning, if you're watching the intro, you'll see, if you've read the books or watched the cartoon in the early 90s, there are these brief little snippets that kind of allude to the other stories, like the Mission to the Moon, the Black Isle. You'll just see them, and it's great. It's like, as if you know what you're looking for. It's just kind of, you know, you feel like you're in on the joke, and it's really great.
Other things to watch out for, because they didn't take, other than the Karabujan, Haddock, and his crew, they didn't take much from the case of the Golden Crab. So instead, they made a number of subtle references to it. The Sultan's garden has a golden crab statue in it, and there's a crate of cans of crab meat with the same symbol on them that
was in the book.
One other thing that to watch out for.
The portrait guy.
Oh, yeah. What's really interesting is the guy who's doing Tintin's caricature at the beginning of the movie, and you see all these caricatures behind Tintin, which look exactly like Ergay's drawings. Well, that's because that is actually a depiction of Ergay, and so when he asks him, "Have I drawn you before?" and Tintin responds once or twice, that's an inside joke in itself, because of course Ergay is the author of the Tintin series.
And I would imagine, as we watch this movie even more, we're going to find yet more subtle things that are in it, because every aspect of this movie is worth looking at. It might not be important to the story, but it's a movie that is very alive, and that's pretty rare in movies.
Yeah, I mean, especially for an animated movie where you have the ability to drop a lot of that and just kind of go straight for the story or easy gags. And there is a cartoonishness at times to this movie, but you don't lose the story in it.
But Tintin was a comic and a cartoon. It was never the perfectly serious. So
we recommend that you see this. In fact, after this, a little while, we have a review of the 1990s cartoon, which we think you'll enjoy as well, from Wasted Years. Otherwise, I'm Albatross.
I'm Ramnessus.
I'm Snake Eyes.
This is the Brothers Herman, and we're
Signing off.